Hey Jib, today is the 7th of October 2020, and today I got a phone call from you. It was a surprise one, and we went on Animal Crossing and we had a great time. We went to the shop and we bought lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of pumpkins, and we built a pumpkin field. And I think we got 100 pumpkins in there. You did a great mathematics to show me, and we're just in the process of building our fence around it. So we're going to finish that off on Saturday, I think. But it was lovely, and I just wanted to say that when I speak to you, it just makes me feel so happy, and I just love spending time with you, and I think you're great, and yeah. So I thought I'd read a book for you today. So I'm going to go for a new book. It's just a once-off book. I think it's called Mouldylocks and the Three Clares, not Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So Goldilocks and the Three Bears is about three bears or Goldilocks, who goes into the forest and she finds a house and three bears live there, but she goes in there when they're out and she sleeps in their beds and eats their porridges and all sorts of things, and they get a bit upset. But this is a bit of a joke book, which is kind of like that, I guess, but it's got some silly things in it too. So here we go. I hope you like it. Right, so let's start. I'm going to send you this book so you can follow this with me on YouTube in the future if you wanted to read it together with Autor. So here we go. The first chapter, chapter 1. High up in the clouds at the top of a tangled beanstalk, there was an enormous castle. It was owned by a very ugly giant called Mouldylocks, who lived all alone, apart from his big fat hen, which laid piles of golden eggs. So there's his hen, and there's Mouldylocks. He doesn't look mouldy, does he? But he does look very hairy. He looks a bit like a farmer. Big feet too. Okay, so one evening, Mouldylocks, there's a bit of glare, Mouldylocks was sitting in front of the fire polishing his gold coins when he said to the hen, "A giant needs a wife. I'm going to find myself a wife." "Cluck, blurp," said the hen as he laid another egg. As she laid another egg. The next morning, Mouldylocks brushed his hair for the first time in years and slid down the beanstalk. When he reached the bottom, he set off along the road toward the nearby village. I don't think he's going to find any giants in the village, but let's see. Oh no. As soon as they saw him coming, the villagers were terrified. They ran into their houses and bolted their doors. "Help, help, big giant!" The giant rapped on one door after another. Nobody answered. "Come out," he roared. "I'm only looking for someone to be my wife." But everyone stayed hidden inside, quaking in their boots. That dog looks a bit sad as well, a bit scared. "Be like that," growled the giant. "You don't know what you're missing." Then he stomped off. Chapter 2. It wasn't long before Mouldylocks came to an old bridge which led to some woods. Ahead of him, along a narrow path, he could see 3 cottages. 1, 2, 3. Pick up 10 pages with one hand. The first cottage was big, the second cottage was tiny, and the third cottage was medium-sized. At the beginning of the path was the sign which read, "Here live the 3 Clares." This is a little bit like which one was that? The 3 pigs and the wolf who blows the house down. "Aha!" said Mouldylocks. 3 Clares. Perhaps one of them will be my wife." He went up to the big cottage. Sunflowers and hollyhocks were growing in the garden. There was a pile of logs by the door, and rock music was blaring from the open windows. "Excellent," said the giant to himself. "A woman who grows big flowers, chops logs, and likes rock music will suit me well." He knocked loudly on the door. After a few moments, a large woman with a big pink nose poked her head out of the window. "Who's that knocking so loudly on my door?" she said. "I am Mouldylocks," said the giant. "You can say that again," said the woman. "I am Mouldylocks," repeated the giant. "I live in an enormous castle and have riches beyond your wildest dreams. I am looking for a wife." Let's see if he gets one, shall we? Oh, look, she's thinking, oh, yeah. "A wife, eh?" said the woman. "I am Great Big Clare, and an enormous castle and riches beyond my wildest dreams sounds good to me." "Then come back with me," said Mouldylocks, thinking how lucky he was to have found such an ample woman. She's got a funny nose, hasn't she? Look, they look happy. Great Big Clare wasn't sure how lucky she was to have found such a mouldy giant, but she didn't need to be asked twice. She ran down the stairs, grabbed hold of the giant's hand, then they marched back along the road and up the beanstalk together. Chapter 3. Great Big Clare couldn't believe her eyes when she entered the giant's castle. "There's more gold on the lid of your teapot than in the whole of my cottage," she said, and she was happy to think that soon it would all belong to her. Within minutes she had moved her clothes into the giant's wardrobe and made herself at home. Mouldylocks wasn't happy with Great Big Clare. He quickly discovered that 1. She was bossy, 2. She snored, and 3. The porridge she made had lumps in it. Oh, and there's more. 4. She stood in front of the mirror plucking hairs from her chin. Yeah. And 5. She refused to chop the logs. Is there more? Let's see. The final straw was when she turfed him out of his comfy chair, sat in it herself, and forced him to sit on a stool. Mouldylocks seethed all night long. Then the next morning he said, "Great Big Clare, I do not want you for my wife. You must go down the beanstalk and never come back again." Oh, look. Great Big Clare cried and shouted and stamped her feet, but Mouldylocks would not change his mind, so she climbed down the beanstalk and stomped all the way back to her cottage. On to chapter 4. A few weeks later, Mouldylocks was playing tiddlywinks with his gold coins when he said to his hen, "I'm going to try again and to find a wife." "Cluck, bloop," said the hen as she laid another egg. The giant put on his very best clothes, polished his boots for the first time ever, slid down the beanstalk and set off along the road to the village. Once again the villagers ran inside their houses, bolting their doors behind them. Mouldylocks didn't care. He kept on going until he reached the path at the edge of the woods. He walked straight past Great Big Clare's cottage and on to the next. The tiny little cottage had a tiny little garden full of tiny little flowers. There it is. Hold on. I'll finish this bit off. Piccolo music drifted out through the open windows, and there was a delicious smell of cakes. Said the giant to himself. Well, she looks nice, isn't it? It's a long time since anyone baked for me. He bent down and rapped on the front door. After a few moments, it was opened by a tiny little woman. "Mind you don't knock my door down," she said, but she smiled at him sweetly. Oh, look, this one looks nice. Who does she sell? "I am Mouldylocks," said the giant. "I live in an enormous castle and have riches beyond your wildest dreams. I am looking for a wife." "I am Tiny Wee Clare," said the woman. "I have heard all about you from my sister. She is a fool if she could not make you happy. I will be a better wife." Mouldylocks was delighted, even if she was a bit small, so he picked her up and carried her back to his castle. Chapter 5. Oh dear, oh dear. Chapter 5. Tiny Wee Clare couldn't believe her eyes when she saw such wealth. There is more gold on the handle of your toilet than in the whole of my tiny little cottage, she said. She was happy to think that one day it would all belong to her, if she can even go to the toilet. Oh dear. She quickly set about making herself at home, covering his shelves with tiny little knick-knacks. Look at all those things. Mouldylocks wasn't happy with tiny wee Clare. He soon discovered that she was only big enough to chop twigs. She grew daisies in his egg cups. The cakes she baked were the size of sugar lumps. She was too small to make the bed. He kept losing her. Oh, where is she? Cock-a-nee-yaw. Oh my goodness. When she nearly drowned running his bath, Mouldylocks had had enough. Tiny wee Clare, he said the next morning, I do not want you for my wife. You must go down the beanstalk and never come back again. Oh dear. Tiny wee Clare squeaked and squealed and burst into tears, but Mouldylocks would not change his mind, so she went down the beanstalk, which took a very long time, and cried all the way back home. I'm surprised that... Well, I guess if she was too small, then it was difficult for them, wasn't it? Oh, looking for another go, I think. Chapter 6. After a few weeks, Mouldylocks was playing carpet bowls with his gold coins when he said to his hen, I am going to have one last try at finding a wife. Clup, bloop, said the hen as she laid another egg. The giant put on his very, very best clothes, shaved himself, which was possibly a mistake. Look, he looks very strange, isn't it? Slid down the beanstalk and set off along the road. He stomped straight through the village, across the old bridge, into the woods, and past the first 2 cottages. Oh, it looks nice. Enjoy. When he reached the medium-sized cottage, he was pleased to see smoke billowing from the chimney. The garden was mostly decking, with a few bushes dotted about. A rich smell of roasting meat came through the windows. Who needs cake if there's roast on offer? Looks a little bit like our house in Animal Crossing. Mouldylocks knocked on the door. After a few moments, it was opened by a not too tall, not too short, not too fat, not too thin woman. Can I help you? She asked. Mouldylocks stared at her and was pleased with what he saw. I am Mouldylocks, he said. I live in an enormous castle and have riches beyond your wildest dreams. I am looking for a wife. I am medium-sized Clare, said the woman. I have heard all about you from my sisters, but I like to make up my own mind about things. I will come with you and see how we get on. Mouldylocks was delighted. Apart from anything else, medium-sized Clare was much better looking than her sisters. He took her gently by the hand and led her back to his castle. Chapter 7. Medium-sized Clare couldn't believe her eyes when she saw the giant's gold. You have all the riches in the world, she said. What can I do to make you happy? Mouldylocks gave her a very long list. I will do all of these things for you with pleasure, said medium-sized Clare. She paused, as though waiting for the giant to say something in return. Good, was all he said. That's what I like to hear. Over the next few weeks, medium-sized Clare chopped wood and cooked and cleaned and laid fires and trimmed the beanstalk. She didn't snore, and she didn't pluck hairs from her chin. She didn't grow things in his teacups, and she didn't keep getting lost. She made the best porridge Mouldylocks had ever tasted in his life, and she made the bed so well that he slept like a tree trunk. She doesn't look very happy though, isn't it? Mouldylocks was so happy that one morning he said to his hen, Medium-sized Clare is the perfect wife for me. I'm going to marry her. Clup, clup, said the hen as she laid another egg. Mouldylocks found medium-sized Clare standing at the top of the beanstalk, gazing down to the ground below. Medium-sized Clare, he said, you know how to make me happy. I will have you as my wife. She doesn't look very happy now, though. Oh dear. Medium-sized Clare looked at him in astonishment. Giant Mouldylocks, she said, I wouldn't be your wife if you gave me all the gold in the world. Not once have you asked me what you can do to make me happy. Not once have you lifted a finger to help me. Not once have you said thank you. I would rather be poor for the rest of my days than stay here with you. With that, she slid down the beanstalk. Mouldylocks bellowed and bawled and thundered around, but medium-sized Clare didn't even look back. She's gone. Wow. After one last howl of anger, the giant stomped back into his castle, sat down in front of his gold and began to count it. Bah! He growled. Who needs a wife anyways? Cluck, cluck, said the hen as she laid another egg. Wasn't quite what I was expecting, but nonetheless, yeah, I guess the moral of that story is that you should always be nice to women, and then, you know, when you get older, hopefully you'll find a nice one, and that you'll be nice to her and she'll be nice to you, and you'll look after each other and love each other, and you'll be happily ever after. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that story. It's going to come in the next parcel, along with some other wishy things, as you used to do. Wishy, wishy. Okay, well, that's it. Take care. I love you lots. And yeah, this morning was really great, and I was just really happy. So I just want to tell you that. Okay, well, I hope you're doing well when you see this video, if you ever see this video, and know that I'm always behind you, and I'm always rooting for you, and, you know, I think of you often. Okay, bye.